Alright, welcome everyone. This is Strick. This is going to be my first YouTube channel video. I'm going to be making mini-series. Essentially, I am just a Masters player, currently sitting between 0 to 200 LP. I think 205 has been my highest. My goal is to eventually hit Grandmaster, potentially Challenger in the future, if I continue practicing and learning about the game. But my goal is just kind of Grandmaster, since I typically have only played a few sets. The highest I've been to Simon. This is the first time I've actually played more than 300 games where I've been continuously grinding for Masters, and so that's just a little bit of introduction about me. And so what we're going to be looking at today is sort of my VOD of my games today, and so this game in particular was a very interesting one. I was playing Soul Fighter, and so what I want to just kind of do is quickly just kind of go over with you things that I noticed that could potentially help you in your games. Obviously, my goal is to get everybody to Masters and beyond. But if you're just, happening to look for videos to help you improve in your gameplay, this might be an area that might be able to help you, since, I've also done a lot of research, looked at a lot of videos on people on YouTube, and have gone with most people what they've been doing. And I'm just gonna essentially kind of slow down things for you to be able to digest everyone's material that I've learned, and just kind of learn it quickly or without having to digest all the material and spending the hours and hours that I have trying to learn the game. So, so first off, obviously, we're given golems, and so just quickly going by the golem that I had Star Guardian Bastions into Soul Fighter, so I didn't feel like I wanted to go into the Star Guardian path, just because I feel like Star Guardian has been lackluster in this new patch. I think we're at 15.6, and so they definitely have toned down Jinx and things like that, so I didn't want to play that, so I was like maybe leaning more towards Soul Fighter. And so just, checking out the emblems and deciding, okay, I don't want to play Bastion's Yasuo, right, because I'm not giving Star Guardian or Soul Fighter wouldn't be really helpful, and so I'm just kind of thinking that I'm maybe leaning towards Soul Fighter. So obviously I had a Callisto there. I played Callisto, had another Callisto on the board. And so I'm just kind of already mapping out in my head that I'm going to be playing Soul Fighters with Bastions and trying to create a good board, seeing as I have already two Callistos. And so that's kind of what my thought process is here, is just I already have a decent amount of synergy from the traits that I have. And so I'm just kind of like figuring out what I'm going to be playing next. So perfect. I ended up getting a third Callisto here, and so I'm deciding to play Two-Star Callisto, and I'm, as I'm going through this, I'm thinking, okay, look, I'm going to be playing a fairly strong board because I have a lot of Bastions early game, and so they're going to be really helpful in determining my tankiness in my front line, and I have a pretty strong back line here, and so I'm like just making sure, okay, I'm going to go Star Guardians, or excuse me, I'm going to go Starfighters and just, Soul Fighters, and continue playing this line. Obviously, I'm just gonna be. Now, normally I would, in a regular Soul Fighter lineup, right? You would want to keep the Aatrox because it's Juggernaut, and it has a lot of synergy with Neferi and things like that. But obviously, I am given Golem, so I'm going to be going a different route with more of a Bastion-heavy front line, so that I can kind of dominate early game and keep that momentum going towards my late game. Since if you are interested in playing Soul Fighter, you understand that you have to have a lot of econ to hit that level 8. Now, obviously, having the Soul Fighter emblem early in the game is really helpful in allowing you to not have to hit the Gwen, but you still have to have some econ to hit level 8, to hit your, Samira 2s, your 2 stars, your set 2 stars, which is going to cost a lot of gold, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I need to have a strong early game, because unfortunately, Soul Fighters doesn't really play well from behind as other comps do, where they can play a little bit better from behind, like Crystal Guardians and things like that. And so I definitely want to play a little bit more aggressive. And so in my mind, I'm already thinking that I'm going to be playing to 4, and so that's kind of why I'm approaching this way. And obviously, like, if maybe you're a, silver, gold, emerald player, this is kind of like the mindset that you want, is you want to have an ideas of already, like, okay, this is the direction that I'm going to be going into my game. I'm going to be playing based on what I'm given. I want to be playing a little bit more econ route, or I want to be playing more aggressive. And so, in my mind, I'm thinking as I'm going through this, I'm thinking aggressiveness just simply because of the bastions, because I already have two Garens, I have, Shen and things like that. So, in Rail, so I'm like, okay, thinking, okay, perfect. And so just kind of like something that people don't mention often is like your early game is very important in what you buy and what you sell. I think it's a lot based on like just my experience, going through, just simply going through like through the ranking system, because I want to show you guys really quickly before I continue, just so that we don't waste too much time. But I want you to show you just my match history real quick in this whole league and how much I've been playing, and and just to kind of give relevance on like how important these things are. I've played over 385 games already, and so initially I started on 826 in silver, and so I've definitely climbed a fair amount. As you can see, I definitely struggled in emerald a bit longer, and then my diamond went through fairly quickly, and so I've been stuck in masters just trying to learn. But this is kind of like why I'm approaching this YouTube series, and so I appreciate you, being able to see that. But also, I've also have shown that I definitely grind games and try to learn the game as best as I can. And one thing that I've learned a lot is you want to be having the best options in your early board. Like normally I wouldn't want to buy these crews unless I'm specifically with like a two Malphites, or maybe a 2-star Malphite. And so obviously you just have to be aware that these early shops are really important to how you're going to be functioning throughout the game. And I feel like the early shops are actually matter more than the 2-1 augment almost. That's kind of my opinion. So first off, we're going to be, I thought about this one as I was playing, and so I didn't like Young, Wild, and Free because, well, I do feel like it's nice to be able to get out of the carousel and have in the gold. I felt like it wasn't enough econ advantage to push me to getting to level 8 at 4-2, right? You want to be able to hit level 8 and 4-2 to get that even interval so that you don't have to have any extra XP over 8. And so I felt like that wasn't that well. Best friends, I was really tempted to take that. As you can see, I was kind of like teetering the edge over rerolling Spoils of War, but then I realized, okay, I don't want Young, Wild, and Free, so I kind of rerolled that. And I almost rerolled Spoils of War, but then I realized that, how about I check everyone else's augment before I pick my own. I know that I have like a little bit more than half the time left to go through that, and so I started looking and saying, okay, there's guys possibly playing Soul Fighter as well, but he has Pandora's Bench, so he has no combat augment. He just simply has augments to reroll. So I felt like, okay, like, his emblems weren't that good for a Soul Fighter, right? Sniper doesn't do anything for you, nor does Wraith. So then I felt like those were too useless. I felt like Bastion was far much more superior. I also looked at his board and I felt like he only had 2 Callistos. I had a third one, so that means I have 2 stars. And so I felt like I had a stronger early game, although he does have a Juggernaut synergy. He doesn't really have that much synergy with his Golem, so I felt like if I was to take something combat-based, perhaps maybe combat and gold, I felt like that was the most appropriate. And so that's why I kind of leaned towards Spoils of War, which gives me extra gold, and it does provide some components as well. And so that's kind of what made me lean towards. Now, typically, I would have went to team building if I felt like I was going to be playing Reroll Viego, but they definitely nerfed it. So in the past, I would have probably played Reroll Viego into Soul Fighter 8, but I just ended up choosing Spoils of War, and that's kind of what made me want to go that route. So I felt like, okay, I had a really strong early game. I felt like, okay, like I was able to get a 2-star Zach, although he wasn't any synergy towards my board. I felt like a 3-star, or excuse me, 2-star Zach was much more stronger to play than playing the an extra bastion, since I did feel like if I put that extra bastion, it would give me 4 bastions. The only problem was that I didn't feel like it was going to be better than a 2-star Zach early on. I just feel like early on it's so important to have 2 stars as much as you can, and I felt like 3 bastions was good enough. and so I kind of wanted the extra health from the heavyweight, which also kind of made me think of like, if I'm going to play this route, I can fit the Kabuko in at level 5 if I sold the Ezreal and made the extra 2 gold, right, to be able to purchase the heavyweight, 1 gold from winning the round and 1 gold from selling the Ezreal. And so I felt like slamming items was kind of important here, not only just because of I'm playing more aggressively, but it's also a very good item on Samira, and so I felt like, okay, I do have a Samira item already, and so I also felt like I could slam Cloak because eventually I'm not keen on Zac playing for long term, so then I definitely felt like, okay, like let me just slam Cloak, it'll reduce some damage on the end. And then if you didn't notice, I also picked the fruit Midas Touch. I felt like I needed the extra gold, just to kind of go back on the choices. I didn't feel like I felt like it was strong enough that I could take a bit more econ route, but also giving me that kill power, right? Since it does execute and it can clean up kills a little bit easier. And so I felt like, if I was going to be playing Gather Force, I would have liked to have maybe Shojin instead. I would have probably played Gather Force in that aspect if I had. But no, I didn't have it, so I was like, I'm not going to slam anything else. I don't have any tank items that I had. The only tank item, or excuse me, reasonable tank at the moment was a Zac 2, and I felt like making Evan Shroud was okay, but it wasn't a great spot. So I just felt like I don't only have 1 damage carry. It's going to be my Kalista, make my Kalista stronger to be able to push for a better stage 2. And so that was my thought process. So I made that extra gold. I was able to buy Kabuko. And so here I'm just kind of figuring out, okay, I don't have enough gold to be able to level to 5. I could have sold the Shen, and then sold these 2, but then that would have gave me 8 gold. I wouldn't have had any gold to buy a unit. So if I had gotten lucky and I had gotten 2 gold from Midas Touch, then I would have definitely sold these and leveled up and put, I would have probably put Syndra in there just as an extra unit, but I wasn't in a situation where I felt like it. And so remember earlier I was saying that I could have put the Bastion in and had 4 Bastions in here. I felt like that was strong, but I also felt like Heavyweight's extremely strong early on because of the Golem. It gives it an extra 150 health, I think, to each unit. I think it's an extra 100, maybe 150 health. I know it's 100 or more, I'm not exactly sure, but I just felt like that was a lot stronger, was having this Heavyweight synergy for my Golem, and also just having 2 Bastions was good enough, especially with the Golem having Bastion as well. So I just felt like that was a bit stronger. And so obviously I was able to get some gold from Spoils of War, so I'm kind of, in my mind I'm thinking, I could probably sell the bench, but it wasn't enough to make Econ because I would have had to sell Rail as well to make 10 gold, so I was like, it's not worth it to sell Rail since I have one, and I planned to play him for a while, and so I decided to just kind of sit on that for now. And so here's a very interesting spot, I was going to think in most cases I was just going to make 10 and sell, but I decided, I didn't really want to do that route. I wanted to just kind of I wanted to make my board as strong as possible so that I can level to 5 on my next turn. I ran the risk of losing this turn by not being 5, but I also felt like that if I was going to hit 5, I should have done it last turn, but I was just not in a position to hit 5 because of the Shen 2 being expensive on the board, and if I sold everything, it was only going to make, enough gold to level, but not be able to play a unit. So then I decided, okay, well, I like that I have the possibility of playing 4 Bastions with Yasuo and 2 Edgelords. And so I felt like, okay, well, I feel like I'm pretty strong here. Now the issue is this guy was strong because he had a TG from his first augment, so he was already up 2 items, and obviously just 1 item and half a component, or excuse me, 1 component. So I didn't win. It was close though, but obviously Star Guardian shields are very strong, especially when he was playing this many Star Guardians. If you can, I believe he was playing 5 Star Guardian already, so I felt like, it was a very close match, but nonetheless he won, and he had a really good front line with Star Guardian shields, so unfortunately I lost that. And I meant to go look at his board, and I was like, yep, that was 5 Star Guardians, so that's 5 shields on 5 units from Realm. And so, unfortunately, the shields are very strong early game. And so he was able to win that, so I didn't win. So I tried going for the rod here because I was thinking in my mind, okay, I want to play for Gwen items eventually when I do get Gwen. And so I was thinking, you know, that rod has a lot of good items for Gwen, and so that was typically what was my thought process around the board. So then, obviously, now I'm able to fit 4 Bastions because I got the Xin as well with the Shen. So here I was debating, okay, do I really want to keep the Zac and have the heavyweight combo? Sure. But this way, I'm able to play 4 Bastions now and have 2 Edgelords, which previously I only had 4 Bastions and I was okay with that, but I just felt like the heavyweight was a lot better synergy wise, and so I decided, okay, well, let me play this lineup because I feel like Yasuo is one of the strongest early game on an early game board. If you have a really solid front line, he just does so much damage, and as you can see, he's already doing as much damage as my Kalista 2-star with 1 item and 1 component. See, it did about 1495 damage, closer to 2000 with items and synergy from Soul Fighter. So I felt like Yasuo was very strong. And so I decided, okay, Yasuo's gonna be part of my early game. And as we're progressing, I'm like, oh, what are the odds that I hit Yumi on a 2% roll on level 5? You know, it usually doesn't happen. Then I get lucky, but I didn't really get that lucky. So I decided to just, obviously there's nothing really I can buy or sell. If I'm lucky, I'm hoping that Midas Touch gives me extra kills with, obviously, Spoils as my first augment. And so I'm looking at this guy's board and I'm like, you know, I also slammed the cloak back on Rail, simply the same reasoning that I did on Zac, right? I'm adding it so that this is on a unit that I'm not really that fond of. Now, for Xin, I am fond of him keeping as a tank, but he's only 1-star, and eventually I want to have my items on set. And so it's really important that as you're slamming these components, to slam them on units you don't really care about, as opposed to slamming them on a unit that you might have as a secondary tank. So I could have put it on set, and eventually I would have been able to 2-star him, but you know, I don't really want to keep him as a long-term tank unless I'm already able to have him as a 2-star unit already. And so you can see I was 3 gold off, and I was able to Midas Touch and Spoils into 30 gold, right, at level 5, and then making that econ. I'm building up an econ while having a strong board. And so this is kind of the benefit of Spoils War in this game that I found, especially playing from ahead, not playing from behind. I feel like Spoils is a very bad augment, and that I've learned a lot from playing my games, that it's not successful at all. And so I feel like in the position that I was in, Spoils seems to be paying off more and more. And so, you know, I'm pretty happy in a position where I'm at right now. I'm, you know, 50, about to be 50 gold. I'm making interval at 40, and I'm able to, you know, continue on. So I'm just kind of scouting a little bit just to see what everyone else is playing. But I'm looking at my components here, and I'm saying, okay, I have tier, I have armor. I really don't like Guardian Stoneplate. I don't like that item at all in this patch, particularly, especially on set. I just feel like everyone has. I feel like set uses the item well, but I'm just not a fan of it, really, honestly. And so I kind of move away from playing Stoneplate because I feel like the flexibility and being able to make things like making cloak and tier together. I can't think of the name, but that item, yeah, Garden Stoneplate. I think about hovering over it, and I'm like, no, I don't really want to play that. So I'm like, cool, I'll use this. I'll use the, you know, the armor on Yasuo because he's the item holder right now, and so eventually I will get rid of him. But if I get a sword, I can make IE. I can also make, if I get 2 swords, I can make IE and GA. G is a great item, or Edge of Night is a great item on Gwen. And, you know, obviously he's incredible on Samira, and so, you know, keeping the flexibility open. I could put the tier on the cloak on Rail, but I just felt like looking at his board that he felt like he was extremely strong, and I didn't feel like it was an item difference on this at all. And so I was pretty happy with the direction that I was able to go towards. So, yeah. And so just to, an adaptive helm, excuse me, is the item that I was looking for. And so here is a very interesting, I Yeah, I thought about shimmering, but I felt like Callista might be able to produce me some gold, but it's also just a gold or a tank item, and I felt like that was okay. But it's I feel like 3-2. I don't have enough items yet, and so I felt like Salvage Bin gives me a complete new item versus that, so I didn't want shimmers. So I just re-roll these two quickly to see if I wanted Howling Gale. I didn't want, and then obviously just going back to the first option. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it didn't seem it was like as good as Salvage Bin. So then once I Salvage Bin, then I was like, okay, now I can safely make Adaptive Helm. I can slam the Rabadons on my Callista since he's obviously my main damage dealer right now. I was able to level it up to 6 to get the extra 4th Soul Fighter in. Now I have 4 Soul Fighters, 4 Bastions, and now I can slam the tier. I was thinking about slamming tier on Callista, but I just felt like I wanted to make my front line a little tankier as opposed to giving maybe an extra Omnivamp and AP and 80 on my Callista, which I felt like wasn't as good. So, and then I also thought, well, it's not going to be a long time before I sell my Callista, or excuse me, get rid of the items in my Callista, so I felt like, let me just make the Adaptive Helm on Rail. Eventually I can sell Rail if I need to, and continue onward. So you can kind of see already like my board stabilizing in 3-2. You know, I have a really good vertical traits here. And that's kind of like what's pushing me to continue moving forward in this game. Yeah, that's basically it. So you can see I kind of win this fairly easily. I didn't need to slam the Adaptive Helm, but since we're playing Salvage Bin, you know, the flexibility is nice. And then obviously I want to buy the Mundo actually to fit an extra Juggernaut. I'm already thinking in my mind, well, what are the other Juggernauts I can play? Well, obviously I want to play Set eventually. That'll be my 2 Juggernauts. But at the current time, I don't have him, so I'm thinking, well, I can play him in. And so it's something that I'm thinking in the back of my mind. If I end up getting rid of the Yasuo, I can fit the Juggernaut in. Or if I'm even going to level to 7, you know, that'll be my 7th unit that I play is going to be on... if I level a 7 at 3-5, it'll be fitting in the Mundo for it. And so here I'm just looking at like the other Soul Fighter, right? Like typically in games, like I'm like constantly thinking about like how I'm going to improve my game, but I'm also scouting a fair bit, not as much as I used to. I used to always spend my time, but I feel like just looking at people that are competing against the units that you are is also important. So I like, okay, like he is also competing against me. He has a spatula, but he doesn't have Soul Fighter since he has to use a Reforger to change it. And so I felt like his gold augment wasn't as good as my gold augment in terms of flexibility. And so I felt like he's a long way from Gwen. He's only level 5 at 50 gold. And so I'm already at a econ advantage because I took spoils, whereas he's just kind of re-rolling 3 costs right now to get Viego. So I felt like my positioning was a lot stronger in this game. And as we continue moving forward, you know, in my mind I'm thinking, okay, maybe in 3-5 I will be able to level up to 7, especially if I get some golds from Midas Touch and spoils, which I am able to get a few more golds. And so you kind of can see that like I'm actually getting a lot of econ from spoils. I already got 7 gold from Midas Touch. I'm looking and seeing like how much gold is from Midas Touch versus how much gold is from spoils. Well, spoils does give a lot of gold early game, and so I felt like this is good. I felt like I have 8 gold here. That's 2 more level ups, or 2 more buy XPs, and so I felt like I'm gonna probably be leveling to 7 just because I haven't really lost previously to like the crew board, and so you know, here I'm looking for like an item to finish off Samira. I'm looking for an item to finish off for Gwen. And so I felt like I wanted the sword really badly, but it was taken. So it was like, well, you know, I was thinking of getting sword here, but I don't think I would have reached it in time. But I also felt like belt was actually a good slam here because I can slam Striker's Flow to my Calista, and obviously I have Salvage Bin, so I was like, you know, I can just get rid of them and make IE, and also use the belt for my set. So I felt like there's a lot of flexibility in splitting my items. I also felt like the belt could have been used on my death cap, so I could have made Morello's for my Gwen, and so I just felt really comfortable here. I leveled to 7, fit my Juggernaut in for a strong board early on, and so I felt like if I was to lose, it would be very small loss. But I felt like I was so extremely strong at this point that I don't think I was going to lose. And so here, previously, this is the board that I lost to in stage 2, if you remember. And I think I ended up beating him. I don't remember, but or it was a very close game, so we'll see. So yeah, I killed him with the Midas Touch, and I was also able to kill with the next auto attack and win this game through Midas Touch. So it's not that bad of a fruit early game if you're strong early. It's not a good fruit if you're weak early, and it does give you quite a bit of gold. I think I was already at 8 gold from Midas Touch, which is excellent, right? You're thinking about like from stage 2 to stage 3, that's 8 gold. Being able to make those intervals, right? Being able to make 40, 50 while leveling up to 6, 7 is so important. So Midas Touch already got my value. So here I was deciding to pick what fruit I wanted on Rail. I decided, Tanksil is okay, but I don't know if Rail's going to live that long. But there is a lot of frontline, so I felt like, I would be getting a lot of value on Tankzilla if I were to use them here. But I just felt like Unstoppable was extra health, and I can now position so that I could hit as many units early game. And so I just felt like Unstoppable was probably correct here. You could probably go Tankzilla here, especially with how much frontline you have. But I just felt like being able to, like you just saw, I was able to put it on the back row and have row dash across. Now the Janna aggro is on Rail, and so the whole time Janna's going to be focusing on Rail while my whole team cleans up the rest of the board. And so I feel like in this matchup, you could see how strong Unstoppable is early game when you have a 2-star and at least an item or 2 on the tank. And so I thought it was really effective and good on me. And so as you can see kind of in the position that I'm in now, I'm strong now. I obviously naturaled one set, so I felt really good about that. Now I can get rid of the Mundo. I could start leveling up to 8. I thought, okay, I have econ-wise, like I'm very strong. I'm probably going to econ and roll down to 4-1, but I also thought there was really no rush to do that. And so we're just going to kind of play it from there. And also was able to fit 6 Soul Fighter, so I got rid of the Yasuo. I felt like, his job was done while keeping 4 Bastions. But do you see kind of how the synergy with Bastion Emblem for my golems was really good? So I felt like I'm in a really good spot here. And so, I'm also looking at the items that I'm playing, and I'm like, okay, like I have, a fairly decent amount of items. And I decide, okay, let's just roll down on 4-1, And so I start rolling down. I see Cassante, and I'm thinking maybe I need a little bit more frontline. So I start rolling down here. And I get another Cassante, so I'm like, okay, well, I have another Cassante, As I'm rolling down, by the way, this is tough because it's like a lot of things you have to remove. So, as you're playing along, keep in mind things that you need to get rid of, things that you need to get put on your board. This is an aspect of the game that I can also improve on, but, I felt like very comfortable. I was like, okay, well, the game's giving me 2-star Cassante. I felt like it wasn't that bad. I already have 8 Soul Fighters, so I felt like maybe I should just play him in. I'm trying to squeeze a roll down to try to get the Samira too, and then I felt like, okay, I don't have enough gold to do that, so let me just at least remove her. But it was a little bit too slow to do that, so I'm trying to obviously put some items on. And I didn't want to make, unfortunately, this is where like the me getting as better as a player was I didn't create like Warmogs here. I didn't want to make a Sunfire Cape because I want to play towards the belt and the death cap and make Morello, so I was a little bit slow. Had I been a bit faster, I might have won, but this guy is extremely strong. So it would have been interesting to see, but unfortunately I wasn't fast enough, so here I am trying to make the items a little quicker. I'm just trying to slam. Unfortunately, I messed up with the belt, and I shouldn't have belted on him, so there's like learning mistakes. I make the Warmogs. I'm thinking maybe I could slam to win here. It was a close game. Maybe if I slammed items, I would have probably won. So there's a misplay that I could have probably played a little bit better, and for the future, I will try to, play better. So here I am, obviously thinking I have to make my items and finish my items. I was kind of leaning towards malicious monetization, but I also felt like, I'm good econ wise. I could probably just use extra board strength to combat, since I already had econ on my first augment. My third one I felt like was combat. And so that's kind of what made me go. I got really excited because I got a roll down and I got a TF. And so here I'm going to fix my items completely and make the IE, make the flicker strail, and just kind of go from there. So I was able to make 2 Samira as well. I was very happy about that. And I'm able to make my items now on set here as well. And so I'm just kind of thinking, like, where do I want my placement on items? I want to move my fruits as well, obviously. So I'm moving my fruits. I think Tankzilla would have been better, unfortunately, but I had to kind of pick quickly. And obviously, I feel like looking back, Tankzilla was definitely the play. But I didn't mind body shield there to shield 2 units, but it was okay. Anyway, though, I felt like I was pretty strong. I felt like Gather Force is pretty strong if I was able to get Buff or Shojin, so I'm pretty happy about like my positioning here. And yeah, I just have a belt, which I like belt, right? I can make a lot of things from that. Like I have the Death Cap that I can make Morellos. And so my goal here is just to basically stay at 8 Soul Fighter. I have 2-star, 2-star. I'm stabilized here. Now, the only thing I wish I would have done originally was sell this Death Cap and made the Morellos already. I didn't do that. I decided, let me just keep the Death Cap and then see what my next item is. And if I have to make, Nashor's Tooth, I'll do that. And then eventually I'll fix the items when I get my Gwen. So here's the part that I really have to be careful in, since I only have 1 removers. And with salvage bin, you really need to be careful on how many items you're making and things like that. And so, I was able to kill a lot of stuff, make a decent amount of gold through spoils, and I felt pretty comfortable in the position that I was in. I have 75 health. I can start econing, planning my board around 9. So in my mind here, I'm thinking I need a second item on Gwen. And I also have the flexibility of, like, if I get another sword, I have I have a lot of armors on set so that I can sell one and kind of go from there. So I was thinking I need sword or I need, and then I thought, well, I was going to go for Nashor's, but then I was like, well, blue is given to me, especially on a 5 cost. That's 5 gold that I can keep, and I can now make blue buff. And so blue buff is a great item. It gives you extra AD, extra AP, better regen. I think it's a fantastic item, especially since I'm Gather Force. And that's kind of what made me want to go for blue buff. Is like, I'm Gather Force. I don't really need to make a new fruit on him. On the edge is good. It gives you 65% health. He has a lot of, lifesteal, and so he'll generally get back to health quickly with the Zomni Vamp. But I felt like Gather Force is extremely good on him, so I just felt like this is pretty good. I felt like the only thing I was thinking about was I could sell the TF and put Zyra, and then I could make my items correctly. I could make Morello, so I don't have anti-heal on board right now, and so I really felt like that was like the one critical part of my game that I really needed to do. And if I just kind of made the Morellos initially, I would have been able to have it already. So there's some levels of play that I could have played a little bit better. And looking back at this, but nonetheless, I'm so strong that I was able to, and I lost this. This was probably a Morello difference. So if you're looking back at my games, making that Morello was extremely important on TF. I would have been able to probably win this game with Morello, especially this round against the Star Guardian. So, and I was thinking in my mind, yeah, I should really fix that items because I really lost that because of it. And so I'm thinking, should I sell the TF? Or should I keep? And I'm thinking, no, I definitely want to keep. So here, it's me just fixing what I made mistakes. I'm like, all right, let me actually do this properly, make the Morello, and just slam the Rod on TF to give him more AP. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really want Zyra on this board. I feel like TF is like another econ. He gives you a lot of gold on the side. He gives you extra bonuses. I felt like my board can fit TF, so I felt like maybe TF is going to be a staple. And so here I'm hoping that I can make enough gold to make everything. Now, typically I would sell the set here to make 30 if I can. Obviously, I'm at 27, I can make 31. But you also have to remember there is another Soul Fighter player, and so I felt like the longer I hold sets, the better it is. So I just felt like, okay, well, I'll just hold on a set for as long as I can until the other Soul Fighter player is dead. And so here's what I'm thinking. Body shields is really not that good on sets. I'm like, well, maybe resistance is better. And so I kind of just leave that there. And obviously, I want to have an extra fruit available. And so as you can see, I'm kind of looking through the rest of my traits, thinking, well, what do I want to put level 9? Like, who am I going to put? Like, I'm thinking maybe Zyra. Obviously, I sold it to make Econ, which is kind of important to make 9 as fast as I can. And I felt like maybe I could find another Zyra by then. I'm happy I make 51 here. I get Sword and Cloak. And so then here's the tough decisions to make in the game. I could make, I can go for bow here and make Ginsu's. And so then I thought, well, I need a Gwen item eventually, so I'm kind of leaning more towards the Chain Vest, but ultimately I think I end up choosing the bow because I think the flexibility that it has in terms of like I can make Giant Slayer now with it on TF, and so I feel like that's a really good item. And so I want to reforge the bow or the cloak because I do not like it at all. And so I see, okay, perfect. I'm able to make, Jeweled Gauntlet with the reforge. Now I'm able to make Giant Slayer. I feel like this is the part where I made 3 good items, or 2 good items from the situation. And obviously Salvage of a Bin allows me to make GA, Morello's, possibly a Void Staff as well if I need to. So, I feel very comfortable in this situation. I'm just like, I'm strong. I'm gonna level to 9, and here's a win, obviously. And so it wasn't really close at all. So you can see the Morello being really effective here in the anti-healing. And my Samira is just doing so much damage with this blue buff and Gather Force combo. I feel like Gather Force and On the Edge are very, very close, especially with the items that I had on here. So obviously we had to make another component with TF. So you can see he's like very helpful as opposed to Zyra, where Zyra doesn't really create any more items. And so I felt like, well, I'll just use the extra lesser duplicate on the Viego to make the Viego 2-star. I feel like this board is extremely strong. I was a little worried when I first saw it because I saw 2 TFs and I'm like, okay, I don't want this guy to make 2 TF and have a TF2 and start farming items, but I did see that he was out of Econ, so that was like the good thing from seeing his board, was that he was low on Econ, so he couldn't really roll that much. And so I'm just checking out the Soul Fighters and seeing how many more wins I need for Prismatic. And he has On the Edge, I have Gather Force. And so this is a good game to show you just like how effective making a proper tank with 3 items is. I do like his 3 items on his Samira, but he's On the Edge and I'm on Gather Force, so you can kind of see the differences between blue buff and things like that. I don't have Shred, he does, so that's another thing that I have to consider. And so you can kind of see here how this game is going. So it looks like for a second that before I start ulting, that my Samir starts ulting, his front line was a lot in the way, but I was able to kind of clean things up a little bit better due to having a TF and just having a 3-item frontline tank. And so you can kind of see in pausing, I'm looking at my damage here. Set does pretty good damage here. My TF died kind of early, but I'm still able to get enough damage out. And there was a big difference in damage in terms of Gather Force and On the Edge, but I also had a better front line, so it's tough to say. His Samir did die a little bit earlier, but I felt very comfortable in the position that I was in. And so I'm just gonna hold off till 5-5 and then level a 9 and roll down and see what I can get. I'm just scouting a little bit here. Normally I scout a little bit more, but I just felt like nobody was really moving their board, and no Kali players, no Katarina players, so I felt pretty comfortable in the position that I was in, not having to do that at all. And so now I'm fighting the star rating person again, but you can see like now that I have a 3-item TF that I'm able to have an effective Morello on everyone, making such a big difference. And so Set's been doing really effective in terms of like tanking things and being a good front line. I have 3 solid items on him, so I felt very happy that I had really solid Set items. And so I was able to win here. You can see the damage blocking 23,000 on Set, so Set's a really good tank in 8 Soul Fighters. And so here I'm thinking like, okay, like what item do I want? I was thinking GA or Edge of Night so that I can have it for my Gwen, and that's kind of what I was leaning towards. But if I couldn't get it, I was thinking maybe I'll go with Armor Shred. And so I was thinking more and more, and I was like, GA is nice, but I want that Armor Shred because I don't have it on my Samira. My Samira is all of my damage frontline. And so I thought, okay, I have a remover now. I got the Gwen, perfect. So then I'm going to fit the Gwen in, get rid of Kalista, right, since I have an emblem from Golem. Here's my roll down. Perfect, I got my TF2. I got Cassante, so I'm like, okay, I can fit Cassante now again. Now I can rearrange my units. I like Shred on TF a little bit better because it's on its auto attacks happening, and so it procs the Shred a little bit better than on her. And so I felt like, okay, let me try to see if I can roll down for Samir 2. I wasn't able to, but I saw Cassante and I was like, oh, I'd rather have the Samir or the Zyra over the Cassante 2. So I'm just kind of making econ, selling things to make gold here. And I was like keeping the option alive with the Set 3, you know, as my other win con condition. Or excuse me, my other win con. And so here you can see that I am losing to the crew board, but I see that he has no econ and he only has 1 TF. So I'm like, perhaps I'm going to keep the TFs if I find any along the way. I make 21 gold, and so here I'm just kind of rolling down to see if I can get Samira 2, or excuse me, Gwen 2, and I was able to, which I was really happy about that. Oh, another Zyra, perfectly. And so I'm at a spot now that I'm probably going to sell the 2 sets to make the 10 gold if I can. And now I'm just kind of rearranging my units a little bit better now. The problem is like I really wanted the Shred on targets, my main targets, since Samira's there. And then I thought, well, Resistant was good, but I'm thinking more as I'm playing the rounds that I'm like, Set's living a long time. I definitely want to think about maybe removing the Resistance to Tangzilla. So I'm just gonna here. I was lucky to have the TF immediately attack the Poppy, and so put the anti-armor on it. And my Samira just completely shreds their front line. And my TF just kind of cleans the back line cleanly. It was kind of a close game, but you know, you can see the damage there. Gwen did a decent amount of damage, but it was really just the TF clearing the back line and Samira clearing the front line. That was really nice to see. And so obviously I didn't sell the 2 sets because I don't think I had enough gold there. Actually did have enough gold, but I also thought that maybe there is a possibility of me having 3 sets, so I kind of kept that notion alive. Whether you want to sell it or keep, it's up to you. But I thought that maybe I could get through 3 sets, 3-star set. But I actually had to sell one because I wanted to make 22, and I thought about it, you know, me losing 1 gold is fine, but me losing another gold on it, probably not. That's fine. So here's a tough situation where I'm at. I'm like, okay, what item do I pick? Do I pick Thieves Glove, Giant Slayer? And I'm thinking, I think I want Infinity Edge because it's an extra sword, and then I can remake the items and sell it, so I can make now a GA so that my Gwen doesn't instantly die. I should have put both items on there. So yeah, I'm re-putting my tank items on here. I ended up mistakenly making the same wrong item mistake, so I'm like, okay, let me just freaking fail as a player to move my items here. But I was able to put the G on Gwen at the very last minute, and it saved her from getting ulted and squeezing out a little bit more damage. But as you can see, this person is very strong. But I do see that he only has 1 TF, so I'm like, if there's any way that I can win this game, it's by making sure that he does not get any more TF. So I'd end up avoiding the TF. It's at 3-star angle, and I decided to just kind of approach this game by rolling down. I'm like, okay, cool, that's just great. I'm having another TF. I'm gonna hold on to that. Zyra 2, which is also another great thing. And yeah, just checking out his board. I'm like, okay, well, I need to keep holding on to the TFs here. And I don't continue to roll down because I want to make econ here. And so then I'm thinking, okay, resistance not good enough to beat his board. I'm thinking Tank Solo is going to be really helpful in beating him because Set's obviously staying alive long enough to get that off. And I feel like the more I can get CC off, the better Gwen will do more damage on units. And so as you can see, I'm able to beat this person's board now with Tangzilla much easier than the last time. I was able to get another component, and then I thought, great, now I have a Ginsu's. Now the problem was, going back and being careful and mindful of the removers. If I had one more remover, I would have probably have been able to put the Ginsu's on TF, but I didn't, and I thought, you know what? Let me just put the item on Gwen. So these are three item Gwen versus 2 items. And I feel like Gwen's just not that terrible. It's bad on her, but the only other item I could have made was Void Staff. Now the issue with that is I didn't have an extra bow for that, or excuse me, another tier to make that. So I would have had to get rid of my blue from Samira, and I wasn't willing to do that since Samira was most of my damage. So I just felt like that my Gwen's just going to be more of an anti-healing support role than shredding, and TF is going to be more of a support TF with the Last Whisper on them as well. And yeah, it was kind of a close game there. His Jinx is doing a lot of damage. So here I was thinking, I could try to remake the items. I didn't have another. The problem with this whole one thing was I just didn't have enough removers. I was going to get a vow so I could sell it to make, and sell the Ginsu's, and then I could have void stuff, but I didn't have enough. So then I was just kind of lost here. I was like, I don't know what item to get. But I was like, just an extra tank item won't hurt, since my backline carries have enough items as well. And I just felt like Zyra didn't need items as much as just having an extra Protector's Vow. Maybe that extra Absorb would help me win one of the rounds. So. And obviously you can see that I'm looking at the crew board, and him not having the proper TF2 was going to be my way to win the game. And so I was just like, okay, let me start positioning around the crew game a little bit better. And I felt like, okay, like now I can probably switch to On the Edge here, as Gather Force was just taking too long to ramp up. And so I felt like On the Edge was just a better instant damage. And so that's what made me lean towards it. I was going to be using the fruit over again if I didn't have it on it, but luckily I was able to roll in it. And so you can see this is a lot closer, and I'm hoping the Samira ults here, but doesn't, so I still continue to lose. My only saving grace is I have enough HP to sack one more. And then as soon as I see the gold from TF, I'm like, okay, I have enough gold now to roll down and to fit the fit the Volibear. Now I have great edgelord on my Samira, so I felt like that was very comfortable and worth leveling here to secure this victory. And so whether I fought Ghost or didn't fight Ghost, I was willing to be able to play this, and see, hopefully I could win, because I think I was at 9 wins on this Soul Fighter, so I felt like if I just could win one more, I would have a Prismatic here and be at a good spot. Luckily I fought Ghost, so it just makes it a little bit easier, but I also felt like if I didn't fight Ghost, that I'd be in a position to win regardless, based on his items. And then I'm also looking at how he's doing against the crew, and he seemed to be doing just well, and was able to, I think, secure his win against the crew. And partially it was because I was holding the TFs, right? I wasn't letting the crew member achieve his 2-star TF, which I think if he was able to achieve that, he would have been more successful at perhaps winning. And so I was able to finally hit my prismatic soul fighter. This is actually the first time that I was able to. And so I was like, okay, well, let me check if he was able to hit prismatic. And so obviously typing in the chat because I'm like, well, we'll win Star Guardian Prismatic or Soul Fighter. And the person was like, look, strict. And so I was also able to hit my Prismatic Soul Fighter. And I was also very curious on what would win. And so I was thinking, oh, I already have Prismatic. I can sell it to make the other. And, you know, really the only item I can think of is Derek's here. Because then I can just get rid of the Vow on the unit. And hopefully I can hit Braum, which I was able to, and I thought Braum was probably a stronger unit than having Volley 1-star with Edge Sword, so I felt like, you know, and that's basically it. I think this is my board. I could have sold things, but there was just nothing that I would have been able to make here. And so this person was their first time seeing 10 wins Soul Fighter, and so here's the board. Here's the fight. I was really ecstatic. I was probably even screaming a little bit like, oh my god, pogging, and looked like my board was just a little too strong. Judging just even based on the amount of true damage that he was doing, his Star Guardian Prismatic was doing a lot of damage, but the Soul Fighters were they were only targeting the front line. I was a little scared, first of all, on the edge. I thought about maybe removing it, but I was hoping that Samira could live a little long enough to just kind of get their ult off and go off. But luckily, I also had Edge of Night on Gwen, so it's really crucial in winning these exchanges. And so as you can see, I was able to win that, and it was honestly really, really a lot of fun. And so, if you had a lot of fun, me diving through a VOD of mine and just kind of explaining my thought process in the early game, middle game, and late game. And obviously, you see that I'm human. I still have a lot of mistakes that I can fix. If you like this, you know, give a like, give a follow. I will be releasing a lot shorter form content. I just kind of wanted to have a longer form video so you can kind of learn more about me as I'm kind of explaining this game and going into more deep diving. So thanks for watching this video, and if you could just give a like, that would be grateful, and of all, appreciate you for watching. Have a good one.